What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about a case that I believe is controversial. I believe needs a lot more investigation, and that is the case of Stephen Avery. Stephen Avery was convicted in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, as well as his nephew, Brendan Dassey. And as much as I would like to cover all of Brendan Dassey as well as like his appeals and everything, I may be able to fit that into this video. If not, it will just be completely separate. But Stephen Avery was convicted of first-degree homicide and was sentenced for life imprisonment without parole. And this is one of those cases where if you're the type of person where you do zero investigation, you're just like, okay, this person's arrested. They did something wrong. They deserve to be where they deserve to be. Please don't be like that. If you're into crime, or even if you're not into crime, don't be like that, because every single case has its own identity, and this one for sure has that. So let's get into the case of Stephen Avery and Teresa Halbach. Forgive me if I'm like reading slightly different today, because I normally have my papers printed, but we are freshly out of ink, and so I'm working off of the iPad. So I may mess up more than usual. So Stephen Allen Avery was born in July of 1962. He is an American from Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, who was convicted of murder in 2007. He had previously been wrongfully convicted in 1985 of sexual assault and attempted murder. Let me repeat that. Wrongfully convicted of sexual assault and attempted murder. After serving 18 years of a 32-year sentence, 6 of those years being concurrent with a kidnapping sentence, Avery was exonerated by DNA testing and released in 2003, only to be charged with murder in a different case 2 years later. So he was exonerated from those charges and then once again is charged 2 years later with murder. Avery's 2003 exoneration prompted widespread discussion of Wisconsin's criminal justice system. The Criminal Justice Reform Bill, enacted into law in 2005, implemented reforms aimed at preventing future wrongful convictions. Following his release, Avery filed a $36 million lawsuit against Manitowoc County, its former sheriff, and its former district attorney for wrongful conviction and imprisonment. He spent 18 years of his life in prison for a crime that he did not commit. He was exonerated. In November 2005, with his civil suit still pending, he was arrested for the murder of Wisconsin photographer Teresa Halbach, and in 2007 was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The conviction was upheld by higher courts. Avery's 2007 murder trial and its associated issues are the focus of the 2015 Netflix original documentary series Making a Murderer, which also covered the arrest and 2007 conviction of Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey. In August 2016, a federal judge overturned Dassey's conviction on the grounds that his confession had been coerced. And if you have witnessed that confession, it is truly one of the saddest things. I don't know how those detectives were even able to sleep at night, even now to this day, knowing that Brendan Dassey is still in prison. He is still in prison over this. In June 2017, Wisconsin prosecutors appealed this decision. 8 months later, an en banc panel of 7 judges of the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit ruled in favor of upholding the original conviction by a vote of 4-3, ruling that the police had properly obtained Dassey's confession. On February 20th, 2018, Dassey's legal team, including former United States Solicitor General Seth Waxman, filed a petition for a writ of... I have no freaking clue what this word is. It's basically a process in the court, some sort of process in the courts. It's CERTIORARI to the U.S. Supreme Court on June 25th, 2018. That was denied. Avery and his legal team continue to advocate for a new trial. It's crazy to think that the justice system in which we are supposed to believe in and trust can sometimes be the complete opposite. Let's get into Stephen Avery's early life and early convictions. Stephen Avery was born in Manitowoc County, which we spoke about earlier, in Wisconsin, to Alan and Dolores Avery. Since 1965, his family has operated a salvage yard in rural Gibson, Wisconsin, on the 40-acre property where they lived outside of town. Avery has 3 siblings, Chuck, Earl, and Barb. He attended public schools in nearby Mishicot and Manitowoc, where his mother said he went to an elementary school for slower kids. According to one of his lawyers in 1985, school records show that Stephen Avery's IQ was close to a 70 and that he could barely function in school. On July 24th, 1982, Avery married Lori Matheson, who was a single mother. They have 4 children together, Rachel, Jenny, and twins, Stephen and Will. Early convictions started between March 1981 at age 18. Avery was convicted of burglarizing a bar with a friend after serving 10 months of a 2-year sentence in Manitowoc County Jail. He was released on probation in order to pay restitution. In late 1982, 2 men admitted that at Avery's suggestion, they threw his cat in a bonfire and then watched it burn until it died. That was very difficult to read. After Avery had poured gas and oil on it, Avery was found guilty of animal cruelty and was jailed until August 1983. And I quote from Stephen Avery, "I was young and stupid and I was hanging out with the wrong people," Avery said later on his first 2 incarcerations. In January of 1985, Avery ran his cousin's car off to the side of the road. After she pulled over, Avery pointed a gun at her. He was upset and alleged that she had been telling people he had been relieving himself sexually on the front lawn, which he stated was not true. Avery maintained that the gun was not loaded and that he was trying to stop her from spreading lies, what he alleges are false rumors about him threatening to kill her, and was not actually prepared to commit murder. He was sentenced to 6 years for endangering safety while evincing a depraved mind and a possession of a firearm. So it's very clear that Stephen Avery was no saint. He did have a prior criminal history. And so it's not like they just picked some guy off the street who had no history. But I think him having this passed on him made it easier to pin it on him. In July 1985, a woman was brutally attacked and sexually assaulted while jogging on a Lake Michigan beach. Avery was arrested after the victim, Penny Bernstein, picked him from a photo lineup and later from a live lineup. Although Avery was 40 miles away in Green Bay shortly after the attack, an alibi supported by a timestamped store receipt and 16 eyewitnesses. He was charged and ultimately convicted of and attempted murder, then sentenced to 32 years in prison. Appeals in 1987 and 1996 were denied by higher courts. Around 1995, a Brown County police detective contacted the Manitowoc County Jail saying that an inmate had admitted committing an assault years ago in the Manitowoc County and that someone else was in jail for it. The jail officer transferred the call to Manitowoc County Detective Bureau. Deputies recalled Sheriff Thomas telling them, we already have the right guy. Don't concern yourself with it. Let me repeat that. The jail officer transferred the call to Manitowoc County Detective Bureau. Deputies recalled Sheriff Thomas telling them, we already have the right guy. Don't concern yourself with it. Avery continued to maintain his innocence in the Bernstein case. In 2002, after serving 18 years, the first 6 concurrently on the prior endangerment and weapons convictions, the Wisconsin Innocence Project used DNA testing not available at the time of Avery's original trial to exonerate him and to demonstrate that a different suspect, Gregory Allen, had in fact committed the crime. Allen, who bore a striking physical resemblance to Avery, had committed an assault in 1983 at the same beach where Bernstein was later attacked in 1985 and was under police surveillance during the period of Bernstein's assault due to his history of criminal behavior against women. However, Allen was never a suspect in the Bernstein case, and he was not included in the photo or live lineups presented to Bernstein. Avery was released on September 11, 2003, and by that time, his wife had already divorced him, and he was estranged from his family. Avery's wrongful conviction case attracted widespread attention. Representative Mark Gundrum, the Republican chairman of the Wisconsin Assembly Committee, impaneled a task force to recommend improvements to the state's criminal justice system aimed at decreasing the likelihood of future wrongful convictions. Recommendations included a revamp eyewitness identification protocol and new guidelines for interrogations of suspects and witnesses, and the collection and storage of material evidence. The recommendations were ultimately drafted into legislation that became known as the Avery Bill, which was passed and signed in October 2005, then renamed the Criminal Justice Reform Bill a month later after Avery was charged in the Halbach case. Avery filed a civil lawsuit against Manitowoc County, its former sheriff, Thomas Kay, and its former district attorney, Dennis Vogel, seeking to recover $36 million in damages stemming from his wrongful conviction. The suit was settled in February 2006 for $400,000 following his murder indictment. To go from $36 million to $400,000 is crazy. So this leads us into the Teresa Halbach murder. Photographer Teresa Halbach disappeared on October 31st, 2005. Her last appointment was a meeting with Stephen Avery at his home near the grounds of Auto Salvage to photograph his sister's minivan that he was offering for sale on autotrader.com. Halbach's vehicle was found partially concealed in the salvage yard, and bloodstains recovered from its interior matched Avery's DNA. Investigators later identified charred bone fragments found in a burn pit near Avery's home. Avery was arrested and charged with Halbach's murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, and mutilation of a corpse on November 11, 2005. He had already been charged with a weapons violation as a convicted felon. Avery maintained that the murder charge was a frame-up intended to discredit his pending civil case. Manitowoc County claimed to and did cede control of the murder investigation to the neighboring Calumet County Sheriff's Department because of Avery's suit against Manitowoc County. As part of the agreement for the Calumet to use resources from Manitowoc County, including personnel, Manitowoc Sheriff's deputies participated in repeated searches of the Avery's trailer garage property supervised by the Calumet County officers. A Manitowoc deputy found the key to Halbach's vehicle in Avery's bedroom. Avery's attorney said that there was a conflict of interest in the participation of Manitowoc County and suggested evidence tampering. 1,000%, they should have recused themselves from that case. There was a case of him already being wrongfully convicted by that county. There's no reason why they should have been involved in that. Avery's attorneys also discovered that an evidence box containing a vial of Avery's blood collected in 1996 during his appeal efforts in the Bernstein case had been unsealed and contained what they believed to be a new puncture hole visible to the stopper. After the Karen Reed case, it's crazy. It's just so crazy. They speculated that the blood found in Halbach's car could have been drawn from the stored vial and planted into the vehicle to incriminate Avery. To combat this claim, the prosecution presented testimony by FBI technicians who, using a novel test developed for the Avery trial, had tested the blood recovered from Halbach's car for EDTA, a preservative used in blood vials, but not present in the human body, and found none. Which leads us to our prosecution. As of May 2006, Avery was the only one of the Innocence Project's 174 exonerees to have been charged with a violent crime after their release. In March 2006, Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, was charged as an accessory after he confessed under interrogation to having helped Avery kill Teresa Halbach and dispose of the body. He later recanted his confession, claiming that he had been coerced, and he refused to testify to his involvement in Avery's trial. He testified at his own trial and never mentioned coercion. Dassey was convicted of murder, and mutilation of the corpse in a separate trial. In pretrial hearings in 2007, charges of kidnapping and sexual assault were dropped. Avery stood trial in Calumet County in March 2007 with Calumet District Attorney Ken Kratz leading the prosecution and Manitowoc County Circuit Court Judge Patrick Willis presiding. On March 18th, Avery was found guilty of first-degree murder and illegal possession of a firearm and was acquitted on the corpse mutilation charge. He was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole on the murder conviction, plus 5 years on the weapons charge to run concurrently. After serving 5 years at the Wisconsin Secure Program facility in Boscobel, Avery was transferred in 2012 to the Waupun Correctional Institution in Waupun. In January of 2016, after Making Murder had been released, People magazine reported that one of Avery trial jurors was the father of a Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputy, and another juror's wife was a clerk of the Manitowoc County. Juror Richard Mahler, who was excused from the trial after the jury had begun deliberations because of a family emergency, later commented that early on, 7 of the jurors had voted not guilty. He was mystified that the jury eventually agreed on a conviction. Mahler's account had been disputed by the other jury members, who claimed that no early vote had taken place and that an informal vote was taken, with only 3 jury members voting Avery not guilty. Another juror allegedly told the Making a Murder filmmakers of the feeling intimidated into returning a guilty verdict, fearing for personal safety. The filmmakers' claims have also been disputed. In 2022, Avery was transferred to Fox Lake Correctional Institution, a medium security prison. In August of 2011, a state appeals court denied Avery's petition for a new trial. And in 2013, the Wisconsin Supreme Court denied a motion to review the ruling. In January 2016, Chicago attorney Kathleen Zellner, in collaboration with the Midwest Innocence Project, filed a new appeal citing violations of Avery's due process rights and accusing officials of gathering evidence from properties beyond the scope of their search warrant. In December of 2015, Dassey's attorneys filed a habeas corpus in federal district court for release or retrial, citing constitutional rights violations resulting from ineffective assistance of counsel and a coerced confession. In August 2016, Dassey's conviction was overturned by federal magistrate Judge William E. Duffin, who ruled that Dassey's confession was involuntary. Duffin granted a defense petition for Dassey's release on November 14th, but the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit overturned his ruling on November 17th, ordering that Dassey remain incarcerated pending resolution of the state's appeal of the habeas corpus decision. He last filed for parole in 2021, but he was denied. He is still currently trying to file for parole to this day. In June 2017, the Seventh Circuit upheld the magistrate's decision to overturn Dassey's conviction, leaving the state with the options of appealing Duffin's ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court, dismissing the charges or retrying him. The state then petitioned the appellate court to hear the case en banc. The state's petition was granted, and the appellate court reversed the magistrate's ruling, finding that Dassey's confession did not violate the Constitution. Dassey's attorneys filed a petition to have the Supreme Court hear his case, but the request was denied. Dassey remains in prison. It blows my fucking mind that Brendan Dassey is still in prison. I don't even think that Brendan Dassey even had a criminal record. Nothing. He was so innocent and so kid-like that during his confession, he asked the detective what time he'd be able to go home so he wouldn't miss like WrestleMania or WWE. It was something like so kid-like that it just blows your mind. On August 26, 2016, Zellner filed a motion with the Manitowoc County Circuit Court for post-conviction scientific testing. Judge Angela signed a stipulation and an order for the scientific testing to proceed on November 23, 2016. On June 7, 2017, Zellner filed a 1,272-page post-conviction motion citing ineffective assistance of counsel, Brady violations, and affidavits by experts alleging debunking the manner in which Halbach was killed, including alleged new evidence and ethical violations by Kratz. Zellner said that Avery's conviction was based on planted evidence and false testimony and was requesting a new trial in the interest of justice. On October 3, 2017, Avery's motion for a new trial was summarily denied without the court holding an evidentiary hearing. On February 26, 2019, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals granted Avery's petition requesting that his case be remanded back to the trial court for an evidentiary hearing on his motion for a new trial. Zellner posted the news to her Twitter page several hours before tweeting, "Avery update, we won," with like 1 million exclamation points. Back to the circuit court. Hashtag truth wins. And then she tagged some people and then hashtagged making a murder. Based on the bone fragments found in the county gravel pit, Zellner proffered a new theory based on new evidence to support Avery's upcoming case. This began in 2018 when she filed a motion to have suspected human bones that were being held by the Wisconsin Department of Justice being tested for DNA. The bones came from 3 different burn piles within the Manitowoc County-owned quarry. And among them was a pelvic bone fragment. New technology used to identify victims in the California wildfires would allow Zellner, if she had won the appeal, to test the bones for Teresa Halbach's DNA. However, when the motion was filed, Zellner soon discovered that the state had returned the bones to Halbach's family. By giving them to the Halbach family, Zellner stated to Rolling Stone, "They have just confirmed they believe those bones are human." Zellner went on to file another motion saying that the return of the bones to Halbach's family constituted an Arizona versus Youngblood violation, which meant that this potentially crucial evidence could not be tested. It's a very sneaky way to get evidence destroyed. It seems very deliberate that the thinking was, we need to get rid of those bones, but we can't just go in and cremate them ourselves. Zellner's second motion was supported by a never before disclosed ledger sheet indicating that the presence of the bones was not disclosed to Avery's defense team before they were returned to the Halbach family. Zellner had 14 days to file any supplemental post-conviction motions before Avery's new court date would be set. On July 28, 2021, the Court of Appeals for the state of Wisconsin affirmed the circuit court's denial of Stephen Avery's extensive brief filed by Zellner, pointing out many representations contained in that brief. On August 16th, 2022, Zellner filed a 149-page motion and third motion for post-conviction relief for the Halbach murder. In the motion, Zellner claims to have new witnesses that would provide new and undisputed evidence that directly links Bobby Dassey to the murder of Teresa Halbach. Zellner also alleges that the prosecution withheld exculpatory evidence from Avery at trial in violation of his constitutional rights. Let's get to some of his petitions. On December 2015, a petition was created at a White House petitioning site titled Investigate and Pardon the Averys in Wisconsin and Punish the Corrupt Officials Who Railroaded These Innocent Men. In a January 2016 response to the petition, a White House spokesperson said that since Avery and Dassey are both state prisoners, the president cannot pardon them. A pardon in this case would need to be issued at the state level by the appropriate authorities. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker stated that Walker would not pardon Avery. A second petition titled Initiate a Federal Investigation of the Sheriff's Offices of Manitowoc County and Tillamook County, Wisconsin, was submitted to the White House petitioning site on January 7, 2016. On March 26, 2013, the public radio program Radiolab aired an episode titled Are You Sure? And this is underneath the media coverage umbrella here. This featured a 24-minute segment titled Reasonable Doubt. It explored Avery's story from the perspective of Penny Bernstein, whom he was wrongfully convicted of sexually assaulting in 1985. And on December 18, 2015, Netflix released Making a Murderer. If you haven't seen that and you're just watching this and you're probably thinking, Ariel, you're freaking crazy. Number one, yes, I am crazy. But number two, please go watch that. Always educate yourselves before just making assumptions. So in 2015, Netflix released Making a Murderer, a 10-episode original documentary series explores Avery's and Dassey's investigations and trials. The documentary examines allegations of police and prosecutorial misconduct, evidence tampering, and witness coercion. The series was widely reviewed and discussed in the media and generated numerous follow-up interviews and articles with parties shown in the documentary, including family members and some reporters who covered the trials. A second season of the documentary was released via Netflix on October 19, 2018. In December 2018, Netflix and series producers were sued for defamation by Andrew Colburn, a former Manitowoc County police officer who had testified at Avery's murder trial. The suit alleges that the series omitted and distorted material in order to portray Colburn as a corrupt officer who had planted evidence. The suit was later dismissed. In 2023, the Daily Wire released Convicting a Murderer, produced and hosted by Candace Owens, criticizing how the Netflix documentary handled the case. So Jody was an ex-fiancé of Stephen Avery, reported in 2016 in an interview with Nancy Grace on HLN that her support for Avery in the documentary was all an act. She further reported that she personally believes he is not innocent in Halbach's murder because he threatened to kill her and her family and her friends in the past. She also alleges that Avery had written her threatening letters from prison. She also alleged he told me once, excuse my language, all bitches owe him, because of the one Bernstein that sent him to prison the first time. We all owed him, and he could do whatever he wanted. Stevens, the one person I can't trust, he's a monster. She also stated he should not be set free. So let's get into some video footage of what I can find other than you guys can go watch Making a Murderer on Netflix. Clearly would be copyright. I can't play that through here. But I will see what I can find, interview, interrogation, and maybe play some clips right after this.
Monty, where's that Suzuki?
On the side.
Is the big garage door open?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk in there and he said, and this is Halloween. Okay. And what's he doing?
He's working on his Monte.
What about the fire?
Do you mean if it was started or something? No, it wasn't.
Okay. We're not going to go any further in this because we need to get the truth out now. We know the fire was going. We know that he had already had his altercation with Teresa. We don't believe there was a Monty in there. I talked to you the other night, you said nothing about a Monty. You said nothing about something getting punctured and leaking out. We talked about cleaning something up in that garage. You told me that you thought, thinking back now that it was blood, it was red in color. You're at your house, 6:30, I'll go that far with you. It might even been earlier. What's going on? Let's take it through honestly now.
Come on, Brendan, be honest. I told you before, that's the only thing that's going to help you here. We already know what happened. Okay?
We don't get honesty here. I'm your friend right now. But I gotta believe in you. And if I don't believe in you, I can't go to bat for you. Okay? You're nodding. Tell us what happened.
Your mom said you'd be honest with us.
And she's behind you 100% no matter what happens here.
That's what she said. Because she thinks you know more too.
We're in your corner.
We already know what happened. Now tell us exactly. Don't lie.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I'm going to go ahead and link this specific interrogation. There's several more. They're very long. And anything that I can find that I feel like anyone would want to watch regarding this case, I will link it in the description box, and I will see you in the next one.